anywhere from horseback riding to crawdad fishing to sports, archery, games, storytelling, you name it, whatever camp would be. But the primary emphasis was to have one-on-one intense time with the kids and to let them know that somebody cared, to make positive memories for them as they were going through the foster care system until they completed or turned out of that. And my wife and I have been supportive of it from the beginning. Frankly, we were financial supporters for many years because we liked it, but we had kids of our own, never could really volunteer. And when my kids got older, my wife kind of said, well, now it's time for us to do something else. And we did volunteer, and she just loved it. So she actually took on the director role for the camp at the church that we attend, and has done that now for 5 or 6 years. And she now pulls together a camp of 100 kids and 140 support staff people and raises the funds necessary to make that camp go every summer. And it's just part of our summer tradition. We wouldn't know how to get through July without going to the Royal Family Kids Camp now. We do know that kids who term out of the foster care system, emancipated or otherwise, without that transitional piece, will within 2 years end up statistically almost homeless,
or in jail.
And about 50% of the young ladies will end up with a pregnancy, and not employed, not going to school, not doing things that will help them to become productive members of society. And yet what we've seen from the kids who go through the Royal Family Kids Camp is that these kids are encouraged. Part of what we do in camp is to encourage them to be involved in school and to read and to learn. We read to the kids. We talk to them about the value of reading and the value of being involved in school and making sure they have school supplies and involved with mentorships throughout the year, because we know that if they do that and then they do finish and go on to school, they've been much more successful in their lives, much less apt to end up out on the street involved in alcohol, drug addictions, and those kinds of things. Kids need a loving, healthy environment with adults and others around them to grow and be nurtured and supported. How do we keep them safe without, on the other hand, destroying them? Some of the kids that we have come to camp, for example, come from group homes, from lockdown situations because of their mental health and other issues, and very difficult. But what we've found in our camp is that with that one-on-one time, with understanding their difficulties, and they're prone to run and flight and all the other act out and meltdown, when someone loves them unconditionally, it's amazing how a person's life can change and how the kids that come to camp can change. So that, just to see that in the course of a week, to see one story I have to tell you. There was a young man who came to camp from a facility in San Diego. Very nice looking young man, dark hair, athletic. Came on the bus. He was so scared. He didn't know where he was going, what he was doing. He wouldn't get off the bus. So my wife, being the teacher and maternal person that she is, went on and finally got him nurtured enough to be willing to come off and take that risk. And he did. And the first day he was still very apprehensive, but his counselor worked with him. They did all the things he wanted to do. He ate all the ice cream he wanted because he could do that. And by the second day, you saw him begin to blossom and come out of himself and to express himself. And he went and did the art projects and expressed the difficulty of his background and the dark colors and how he felt at the moment. And he did that for a couple of days until on Thursday afternoon, he realized that he was going back to his situation on Friday. And you could see this young man who really had blossomed like a flower just begin to close. And on Friday, could barely get on the bus, in tears, because he knew what he was going back to. That shouldn't happen.
What does the Los Angeles Mission do?
It's interesting because people always wonder what the Los Angeles Mission does. And the common perception is that we are a soup kitchen and we serve meals and put people up overnight. And that's true. We do emergency services. We provide meals, we provide clothing, we provide showers, we provide beds. But we also do more than that, because we believe that solving homelessness, dealing with people, it's more than a meal. It's like to say, it's what happens after the meal. It's the giving of hope that you don't have to be in that situation, that condition, however you got there, there's something else, something moving forward. And so what we do is we work with individuals to understand where they are in life, what their particular issues or concerns might be, if they have addiction issues, if they have relational issues, if they have educational or vocational issues, and we try to help them understand themselves, understand how life works, and how they can help to make changes in their lives to really be productive citizens. And we do that by work therapy, we call it. Everybody works. It's an expectation. There's nobody here who's going to take care of you. You need to learn to take care of yourself to the best of your ability. And so we teach people, if you have a job, you have to show up on time. You have to be nice to the people that you work with. You may have a boss that you like, you may have a boss you don't like, but if they tell you to sweep the floor, you have to sweep the floor. It's as simple as that. We also do an academic piece. We spend a lot of time understanding where a person is, because we know that literacy is a key component to a person's success. The state of Florida, for example, measures their prison beds on the basis of third grade literacy for the future. That's how they predict the number of beds. The higher the illiteracy, the higher the number of beds. But we know that that's important, and so we spend a lot of time getting people mentored, helping teach them to read, identifying things like dyslexia, for a lot of people who in the school system might have gotten overlooked. And so or might have got out on drugs or something, and so they weren't even part of it, dropped out, if you will, of the system. Do that with the intent that they get a GED, because we know that's kind of the beginning entry point in today's economy. For many of them, that's a challenge. For some of them, we find that it's only a beginning, because they really do have the ability to go beyond that, and we want them to do that, and we encourage them to do that. But we do that particular piece. We also talk to them about spirituality. We talk about the traditional Christian concept of God and faith and how that can affect a person, but also understanding that there are other beliefs and other systems that a person might choose to accept, but that spirituality, something greater than yourself, is important in your ability to understand and move forward. In addition to that, we do other counseling, class work. Many times it's anger management. It may be parenting, working with families that have broken apart and need to come back together for reunification. Children being reunified with their parents, if that's appropriate or not, or even possible. But we do believe in trying to heal relationships, whether the relationship results in a reunification or not is really not the issue. This is my mom and I want her to be part of my life. I'm adopted out to somebody else at this point in time. That's all part of the issues that happen in life. But we want those relationships to be restored. And those are the kinds of things that we do. We also work with the job piece. We take a student who's come through the program, gotten themselves to a point where they're ready to go out, they have a readiness to go to work. We help them work on legal issues that they might have, record, whatever it is. Also give them some career training, help to introduce them to some of the kind of job options that might be out there, the educational opportunities. Many times it's an apprenticeship. We have a lot of guys that like to do truck driving, for example, so we'll help them get into truck driving school. We have a number that go into food service, because that's a very easy, safe serve program to get started in, or the restaurant industry. We have others that work for Fresco Market, for example. One of them went to work and got a meat cutter's certification. So, and then we have others that run small businesses. We have one that started her own florist business. Another guy has a catering business. You never really know where actually my grant writer who works for us, highly educated individual up on the street, was a client, got his life cleaned up, and now he actually is back in the workforce working and writing grants for the organization.
What percentage of your graduates from the first year and the second year get and maintain permanent housing?
I know we did a study on the Ann Douglas Center, our women's program. 85% of the women that graduated in that program after 5 years were still meeting those criteria. Our men's program would not be that high because it's larger, other factors that play into men's recovery and men's living and so forth, but probably going to be 55 to 60%, somewhere in that range.
Do you have a requirement that they worship in a Christian worship service?
Yes, we do have an expectation that they will be part of a Christian worship service. And the reason for that is not that they accept what's being taught, but that we want them to understand and experience what that is. We've had individuals come through of Muslim background or Jewish persuasion. It isn't that we want them to understand the principles of what Christianity is from a tolerance standpoint. Whether they choose to accept it or not is always an individual's choice. But we want to introduce them to that. And then also part of that is helping them really to understand that there is something beyond themselves. It's what perhaps drives many of us, our belief in something greater. And so that's important to give hope. Quite frankly, it's part of that equation of how do you go above and beyond where you are today. And others care, that there's a God who cares for you. Those are concepts that we think are helpful.
Are you of service to the community in any way other than your employment here, your regular church, and the camp that your wife runs?
As part of being part of the community, not only do I lead the Los Angeles Mission, but I am involved with a number of organizations sort of related to that. The Los Angeles Central Providers Collaborative, I'm the president of that at the moment, which is a group of 18 to 20 organizations here in Skid Row, such as the Midnight Mission, the Union Mission, Weingard, Volunteers of America, People in Progress, that provide services in this particular geographic area. And we get together on a monthly basis to talk about issues, what's going on, political issues, the way that policing is being conducted, services are being provided, things that we need to come together and address. For example, we did a vulnerability survey as part of the Downtown Pathway Home Project, which came out of that group, which was to identify, our goal was 475 of the most vulnerable people living in Skid Row. I believe that as an organization and as an individual, we cannot be islands unto ourselves. That there are things that other people bring to the table that they can bring better than we can. They have different skills, different understandings, different knowledge. So in a community, part of being community is sharing and learning and participating with one another. So I do that. I'm also involved with LAHSA through that particular program, which is the Los Angeles Housing Services Agency, the organization that takes all the county, federal, and state and city monies for homeless services, and then they fund the program. They are the program funders. It's a structure that makes those grants available. As I looked at life, it was something I always went back to. There was something that resonated with me, with my person, about helping other people, not always trying to figure out what I could get out of life. And when you learn to give, you learn that really is much more rewarding in the long term than in getting. I've been very fortunate in my life and had a lot of different things and gotten beautiful gifts and traveled and all those wonderful things. And I love them, and I'm not unappreciative of them. But you know, sometimes when you're able to give somebody something and they appreciate it, I get more joy, more satisfaction from doing that than from the stuff that I have.
Do you remember the first service project you worked on in your life?
When I was in Boy Scouts, and we did a project where we went out into the woods working on a trail, just cleaning the trail, chopping down the bushes.
For someone's Eagle project.
I think it probably was for someone's Eagle project. I honestly couldn't tell you now. I just remember going out and working on the hill and thinking, this is really different, but I'm enjoying what I'm doing, and it was for somebody else, part of helping the environment, helping people get some enjoyment and safety from being on the trail.
Can you describe a moment when you knew that service was going to be a major part of your life?
Yeah, the time that really stands out to me was that time in Brazil. I think it was because I was independent at that point and in a different environment, But something happened where I was asked to accompany a shipment of medicine from Brasilia down into the southern part of the country on the bus. And the reason that was necessary because at the time, if it wasn't
could get
accompanied,
stolen.
it was stolen. In Sao Paulo, I watched the medicine be transferred from one bus to the other and got on the bus. But when they dropped me off out in the country, the medicine wasn't there. And I didn't know what to do. I was frustrated. I thought I had done what I was supposed to do. But miraculously, the next morning, the next bus, it came. Somehow it had gotten misplaced or mismarked. It never happens, but it did. And as a result, I was able to take that out into the jungle area where we call the tribe was, individuals living in straw huts and grass roofs and so forth. And with the gentleman that was involved with the education project, offered the medicine to them, and they were ecstatic because it was very, very necessary for them. I didn't think much really about it. It was a box of stuff. I had health care. I just walked into the doctor's office, never thought much about it. But the appreciation of those individuals was such they wanted to give me something. And so the individual that I was with said to me, okay, we're going over to their house. They're going to give you something as a reward, you know. Don't know what it's going to be, but I can tell you it will be the best thing that they own. And I'm thinking, I don't need another trinket, you know, whatever. You know, this little snooty little New England boy kind of attitude. But I went, sat on a log, and sat out in front of the straw grass hut and waited for the gentleman to come out. He came out with a 5-pound rusty coffee can full of oranges. And I looked at the guy next to me and I said, "This is the best that they have?" He said, "Yeah, they don't have anything else. You know, they went and got these oranges and they're giving you the oranges." And there was something profound about the fact that, you know, an orange, which I would take for granted, it was in my stocking at Christmas every year. We made jokes about my mother putting the orange in our Christmas stocking. Served in a coffee can that I would have found at the dump while I was shooting rats or something, because our meal would have been served on silver or china or whatever, and it just made such a profound impact on me that I have been given so much of an opportunity that I just had to be able to give that to others. I've always done this little exercise every year when we, you know, people do New Year's resolutions, and they all make them and we all break them. But one of the things that I do is I walk outside of my house and I look and I think, is there anything in that house that I really need? Could I walk away from that today? Is there anything that's holding me to that? And if there is, I get rid of it, because it shouldn't have a power over me to control me.